we are thought leader in the OPD space, and that's where I've released around 1,000 plus releases till date, and we have around like 80 plus customers and around 475 product SKUs. Okay, and our offices are the ODC is mainly in Chennai, and we have offices on the globe in UK and in US. Okay, and to get into the today's webinar, I'd like to give you some of the housekeeping instructions. First one is all phones are connected to board. If you have any questions, please type in the window located beside the presentation panel. And we have already received several questions from the registrants, which will be answered by the speaker during the Q&A session. And if you have any questions during the webinar, please type in your questions. Okay, we will continue to collect more questions during this session. In case if you don't receive answers to your questions, we will try to answer them via email. And once again, I would like to introduce Yuan Central. Yuan Central has worked on major organizations like Nokia, Worldman, and Atos, and it is one of the initial successful developers who has implemented the knowledge management and work with social computing, social media, etc. And is one of the foremost different advisor of social computing and Indian blogger and public speaker. Okay, and Lance Ward, he is the founder of the channel itself. Also a well-known writer, speaker, public speaker, and address of radio and television. Okay, he is also a sponsor of the developing prominent brands, architects, and marketing managers for the century, including the idea of social marketing, intelligence, and electricity and transfer electricity. And currently is on the next project called Mainline, and one is for the network group. Okay, so we'll start off with one Central who will come to the presentation, and after the presentation we have a big board, and then we'll go with one give you the answer.
Thank you, and hello to everyone. In this session I'm going to talk about Enterprise 2.0, Web 2.0, social media, social computing. There are lots of various phrases that have been come up with to describe basically the connectedness that we're all beginning to experience on the internet. And although the phrase Web 2 and Enterprise 2 have both had benefits in as much as they've helped people to shorthand talk about some of the concepts that can be a bit ill-defined and a bit straggly, they also give the impression that there is something specific and difficult and discrete about both of those things, whereas in fact what I think we're talking about is just the process of the web becoming more mature, becoming more pervasive, and becoming more used in the context of doing business. So as I say in this first slide, a lot of people's attitude is Enterprise 2.0, why bother? And I will hopefully convey why I think it's worth bothering about in this presentation. I will cover a couple of angles. One is what's the problem that we're trying to solve by using these technologies in business? In fact, I'm sitting at the moment in an office of a London firm with ranks and ranks of people around me sitting staring at computer screens. I'm very conscious of the fact that an awful lot of business involves an awful lot of people carrying out processes in isolation very often. Very often without a clear sense of what the point of the processes are. And in many cases, sadly, aided and abetted in this process by some of the over-engineered software that enterprises have bought over the last couple of decades. And I think the mistake has been that people have seen organizations as machines have rigid, clearly delineated processes that you simply slot people into as if they were the meatware in the system. Whereas in fact that is, and I think more and more people are beginning to recognise that actually real life is much more complicated than that there has always been a social element to how we've done business, and in fact the ability to do business very much relies on people's connections with each other and relationships with each other. And this is what people are beginning to realise social media, Web 2.0, can help with and begin to reintroduce back into organisations. There are two key ways in which the real value of social media, I think, becomes apparent. Two of the big words that organisations always use to describe their aspirations, but which very rarely come to fruition. And those are collaboration and innovation. These words get used a lot, but collaboration is something that's very difficult to pin down and identify when you actually see people doing it. But I would interpret it as basically being the ability to do things with the help of other people and be able to collectively achieve more than individuals can on their own. We tend to make that very difficult in organisational life. We don't know who else is doing things related to our tasks. We don't know who owns half the problems that we're trying to solve. And even if we did know, we don't have the physical or organisational ability to connect with those people. The second challenge that organisations consistently face is being innovative. And again, innovation tends to be seen as something that has to be organised, that you set up a committee to do, that only certain people do. Whereas in fact, most valuable innovation comes spontaneously. It comes out of situations that are currently problematic. In other words, people become creative and innovative when things aren't working. The culture in organisations is very often not to admit that things aren't working and to repress those sort of conversations. So being able to tap both of those aspects of business and get access to basically what your organisation knows. This was a classic aspiration of knowledge management. That for all the documentation, for all the processes, most organisations don't actually know what they know and can't make active use of it. Trying to manage that kind of process without having access to individual stories is very difficult. And one of the reasons for that is that people don't tend to like to be open about what they're learning. And just a brief anecdote in terms of this, I used to work on the operational side of the BBC World Service. And in fact, part of my job was playing out live broadcasts to the Indian subcontinent in Urdu and Hindi. And in the process of doing that job, as you can imagine, in a live broadcast setting, there were lots of things that could go wrong. There were lots of mistakes we could make that could have sometimes quite extreme consequences. I have taken many programs off the air over the years. And the reasons that those things go wrong are very often complicated and multidimensional. And of course, what we used to do in the old days was if you'd made a major mistake and you had all the adrenaline pumping of having done so in front of millions of listeners, was go straight into the BBC Club, tell the story, get it off our chests, and allow all the other people who did our job to learn from our mistakes. Now that process has become much more difficult in organisations. And a lot of what people's knowledge that's available to organisations gets lost. It doesn't get passed on, it doesn't get captured. If it gets captured, it gets captured in ways that are unlikely to be read or made use of in the future. So there's basically a huge problem of the day-to-day practical learning, collaboration and innovation fields that the organisation is doing just gets completely missed. At the same time, when we're at home, we're all beginning to use the plethora of Web 2.0 tools to connect with other people, to share information with each other, to build relationships with each other. Very often tangentially, very often we will build a relationship on the basis of one interest, but then find out that the person is able to help us in ways that we weren't able to predict or that we didn't know about. And tools like Facebook and LinkedIn and others are beginning to help us to express those interests, to push out into the networks what our experience and knowledge are in ways that other people are then able to navigate their way to and begin to connect us with us about and make use of. Now the challenge for organizations is that increasingly people are beginning to get used to using these tools in their own environments and in their own homes, and are beginning to expect to do so in the workplace. So the meeting I'm about to have after this is with some banks who are facing the situation where they have regulated environments, they have tightly controlled security environments, where their information is closely guarded, and in fact they are legally obliged to make it closely guarded. And yet at the same time, they're smart, connected, networked individuals who frankly are the source of much of their business and their value, and using these social tools on the outside. Now I guess there are basically two options that people have in terms of dealing with these issues. The first one is to do nothing. A lot of companies are doing this. A lot of companies are banning these tools. A lot of companies are pretending these tools aren't there and that they don't have to worry about it. But the big risk of taking that approach is that you open yourselves to people doing it anyway, people doing it in an uncontrolled and unmanaged way. The second option, and this was very much what we did at the BBC, was to acknowledge that this was happening and to get involved, to understand these environments as managers, to begin to help educate our organisations as to the consequences of their sudden appearance in the technical landscape, and to learn as we went how to get the most out of those technologies. Now, in this next section, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the practical approaches that we took to make that more likely to succeed than not. And we were doing this a long time ago. I mean, I actually began to do what people now call social computing or Web 2.0, Enterprise 2.0, 9 years ago, when we first began to deploy these systems. And the first thing we did was put in a bulletin board. We then put in blogs. We then put in wikis. And then we began to deploy RSS. And did so in a under-the-wire way. I realized that it was not something that I was really going to be able to ask for permission for. It was better to ask for forgiveness after the fact. So we began to use the tools ourselves. We began to promote the use within our network of friends and colleagues. And gradually the systems grew until ultimately 30,000 staff used the forum and hundreds of people were blogging. And what became apparent was that, to quote Peter Drucker, the management guru, in a knowledge economy there are no such things as conscripts. And what Drucker is trying to say here is that if you're expecting people to open up and say what they know or ask questions of others which may make them feel self-conscious about not knowing the answers themselves or whatever, you're basically, by asking people to share knowledge, not involved in a clinical, abstracted, sanitized business process, you're actually asking them to do something that's very personal. And in order to do so, they have to do so voluntarily. To coerce someone into writing a blog is never going to work. The person has to feel comfortable with expressing what they know, and they have to feel comfortable with sharing what they know with other people. And the trouble with most management is that it's been set up to manage conscripts. It's been set up to manage businesses on the basis of constraining behaviors, sanitizing organizational cultures, and trying to make things as neat as possible. But what people are beginning to understand with their experience of the web is that tidying things up actually just means you lose the creativity and the innovation that we spoke about earlier. So this was quite a big culture change for the Beach. We had the creative aspects of the business, and we had those people who were involved directly in program making. 75-80% of the population were in conventional jobs like HR and finance and support activities like that. So their management were much more like other organizations' I guess they were much more conventional in their approaches. And for them, it was very challenging for me to be introducing these tools that appeared to be unleashing something they had spent a lot of their working lives to try and stay on top of. And to be frank, there will still to this day be people in the organisation who have not yet seen the point of doing what we did. But our experience was, once you get access to 30,000 people's worth of accumulated experience and knowledge, all sort of amazing things happen. You get different parts of the organisation realising that they are two ends of the same problem but never knew it. You get people offering up information and being willing to share and support each other in ways that previously would have been seen as intensely competitive, where people trying to hold on to their information. And you gradually over time build up this amazing accumulated collective memory that's visible. So one of the classic knowledge management problems has always been how do you retain knowledge. And of course there have been attempts made to do with exit interviews or whatever to capture the knowledge. But in fact, if people are having their work conversations on a regular basis on systems that are visible and open to the whole organisation, when those people leave, those conversations are still there, visible to everyone. Now we kept those conversations within the organisation mostly. But some companies, partly because deploying these technologies within a firewall is still not without its technological and organizational challenges, are choosing to do this on the web. And a well-known example of this is Serena Software, who basically came to the realization that most of their staff were using Facebook. And in fact were spending time when they were at work on Facebook. And they realized that they were spending that time doing work on Facebook for the organization. So rather than try and build their own possibly less well-designed and less effective equivalent of Facebook inside the enterprise, they decided to basically make Facebook their corporate intranet. So they basically turned the organization inside out and now do a lot of their business on Facebook, a lot of their information transfer takes place on Facebook, and they're able to open up that information to their customers and to other suppliers. So they have quite a remarkable degree adopted the principle that it's better to be open than to be closed, truly taking on board the acknowledgement that it's better to engage this stuff than it is to pretend it's not happening. Now, a lot of people then ask themselves, well, do we have the right culture? Could we trust our staff? Is this something that we could actively embrace? And what would the consequences be? And the introduction said, I'm lucky enough these days to work for a whole range of different types of organizations and a whole range of different types of industries. And I would argue that they have more in common than they have as differences, and they have more in common with the BBC than they have as differences. And determining whether you have the right culture or not is basically down to adopting 4 tips that I'm going to give you in the approach that we took. The first one is that it's not about the technology. In a sense, it sort of doesn't matter which tools you use. Yes, some are better than others, yes, some are more effective than others, but frankly, the churn rate and the speed of adoption and the speed of development of these tools means that really you're going to have to change whatever you're using in a relatively short space of time anyway. And also, it's not about using your own technology or using the web technology. It's about the attitudes, about people's willingness to be open, and about your organizational tolerance for the differences that serves. The second thing is to, again, possibly uncharacteristic about Britain, is that those who set about to bring these things into organizations have to be passionate. They have to care that it's going to happen. You can't do it in a conventional, managed way. Because it's about people, it's about personality, it's about the sorts of colour and richness that you get on the internet. So you have to be passionate enough to drive that into the organisation. The next tip is that you have to undersell, because people are very sceptical about this sort of stuff. It's the sort of thing that's so counterintuitive for so many people that it's easily dismissed and easily seen as not being real work. So one of the tricks we learned was really not to push it too hard, not to say that it was going to change the world, not to say that it was going to do all sorts of amazing things, but basically just to get on and do things and make it happen. The biggest tip I would give people is that you need to be patient. a lot of organizations have deployed these tools, they've expected things to change very quickly. When that hasn't happened, they've then become disaffected and given up. We took 6 years at the BBC really to begin to get things working on a large scale and beginning to deliver the benefits that we eventually saw. And I think that those timescales may be getting slightly shorter as more of the workplace is becoming familiar with these technologies, but I think it's still going to take longer than most people assume. If those listening to this webinar are in a situation to begin to get engaged with this stuff, I would just say have a go. Begin to deploy the tools, begin to use the tools, begin to talk to your managers if that's appropriate about your desire to do so. If you go to that URL, I've got a handout which will give people a kind of summary of some of the stuff I've talked about and some links to be able to take on some of these ideas and take them forward. And basically, I'm very keen that if any of you want to stay in touch, you do so through my website, doingtemple.com. And if you have any further questions, that's the best place to get in touch with me.
Hi everyone, thank you for the wonderful presentation. And to the participants, we'll run through a small poll now, and we will share out public for you. Please do go and fill something to poll them. Okay, it is like how effective presenters are in control. We'll be closing the poll now. And we'll move on to the right?
Hello there.
Okay, Alex, I will
Are you ready for me to start? Yeah? Okay. So, again, hello everybody. Thank you for listening in, tuning in to Ewan and I. Listening to Ewan speak, he always brings a great deal of real practical wisdom, I think, to a world that is, heights to extraordinary levels. But listening to him talk, he reminded me of the word innovation.
Brian, a quick interruption here. Can you share it, please?
Hello? Hello there.
Then I'll give you the keyboard handout. Please control.
Okay. So, yes, so again, hello and thank you everyone for tuning in. It was saying that Ewan always brings a great deal of practical wisdom, common sense to a world that currently sort of heights is seems to be seeming, but he touched on a word which I think is very important, is innovation. And there's 2 points I want to make here. One is that I was talking to Tom Kelly's book the other day. He's the general manager of a company called RDO, the product innovation. And he described the fact that he grew up in a town in Ohio that was at one point when he was born made all of the tires, all the cars, all the trucks, all the vehicles in America. And they thought that would last forever. He said by the time he went to college as a young man, 30
there's been an invention called radio tile by a French company. And as he left for college, he saw a town that once described it was actually paid. He said people no longer wanted to buy the tiles that they made, and rather being prepared to look and embrace the possibilities and potential of the future, they refused to accept that others from elsewhere could come and do something better than they currently did. And I think that this is extremely important, and it kind of relates through to the chart I've got here, going back to the way things were with the international question, wouldn't it? It also reminds me of a conversation that I had with the CEO of the UK's largest regional newspaper group in 2006. And I went to see him, and it was about a year or so after I just published Communities Dominate Brands, where we kind of described how connected communities, network communication, the ability to digitize really all content completely transforms the kind of power relationships between sort of media and marketing and business and brand. And I said to him, the evidence already points to the fact that you must think the unthinkable, that your main revenue stream that supports your entire group and profit, i.e. paid for classified advertising, is a failing business model. And I suggest you have to do two things. One is I suggest that you have to think about how do you create more value for your readers. They would be taking their newspaper and sticking exactly the same content online, but therefore they completely misunderstood the full potential of the medium. I also said that they needed to think about how they created therefore more value for their advertising, and they had to rethink what advertising was. And the reason why I say that is because markets are in fact conversations, as Oscar said, and of course, as Ewan points out, what people want to do, in fact, is connect as real human beings in real-life relationships. The book I'm working on, No Straight Lines at the moment, says to you that we are, in many ways, at the toxic tail end of our mass consumer industrial society, where by the way we work, the way we're expected to behave as consumers in the big wide world is actually we are thin sliced into units of production and consumption. And this is actually not the way and the nature of what makes us human beings. I would also say that, we do live in a network society. And what that means, in fact, is it's changing the way that we are connecting and relating to each other. To go a bit further, I would say that we as people are renegotiating the power relationships between us, our wider community, the organisations that we work with, the media that we connect to, and even up to a governmental level. It's a profound change. We want to actually get back to this idea of what we are truly as human beings, which in fact is participatory. So new communication technologies do transform society. We are all, whether we're slightly ahead or slightly behind the curve, in a journey which I think is extremely exciting of transformation. But as Ewan points out, a lot of people like to say, I embrace progress, but I hate change, and it makes people very fearful. Now, the problem for companies or sort of legacy organisations that were built out of the idea of analog scale, control and dominant player of marketplaces, was a rather sort of linear approach to sort of doing things. But in the network society, where we are a battling group of people where news and information can sweep across the world within seconds, trust is the most important thing that you have to work at as a business. You have to become completely customer-centric. I think that this is a very much misunderstood term. I think the upper focus on product development, represented by James Dyson with his Dyson vacuum cleaner, even the Mr. Igoni who designed the first Mini, even the iPhone, represents an upper focus on sort of real way that you're going to proceed within this network world. And I also argue that as a business, you have to do three things. You have to either be life enabling, you either have to be life simplifying, or you have to be navigational, help me navigate through the complexity of my life. I think that we have gone from a world within the West, admittedly, from scarcity to abundance. We've got to rethink what the role is of our business and to create value for people rather than seeing ourselves as some sort of being slightly differential to other companies. And also within the network society, people talk around values, passions and desires. This is partly to do with our relationship to each other in a post-modern world where our identities are shaped by the external forces around us that we want to. And also the ability, therefore, that communication networks allow us to reach out and find the things that mean the most to us. It means that we no longer live in a broadcast world, which is why broadcast media is struggling with the business model that it's currently using, trying to shore up and not being prepared to really think the unthinkable. This means that actually we can be hyper-local as networks, which is a picture of a farmer's market, and we can give you an example of a service of that in Japan called Health Network. You'll see sort of an interface that's got some little purple characters on there with kanji characters, and next to it is a picture of a young Japanese woman. It's a small area in Tokyo, and this woman, so for example, has broken her arm. She needs someone to come and sort of help her put her heavy shells up. So what she does is she goes onto Health Network in a hyper-local area. She could find someone or a couple of people that have the tools, the skill, and the time on Thursday morning to pop round and stick their shelves for her. She can negotiate the price. And that's a hyper-local service, and it's something that I'll come back to slightly later in the presentation. But it can also be super global. Our businesses actually aren't defined and controlled anymore by geography or by the sort of the analog problems of production. We have a completely different capability. So this is a story about a lady called Lauren Leach. She's 21. She's a single mum that lives in a northern town in England called Newcastle. And she really had a great deal of qualifications, struggling to make ends meet, but she seems to be pretty handy with putting makeup on and different ways of how you put makeup on. Lauren Leach now is a global phenomenon on the internet. She runs a website called Panacea 81. Her market is not hyper-local because what she does could not be supported by a hyper-local market, but a super global one does. She now writes columns for various magazines. She sits over Times Square. And she has something that a lot of companies are desperate for, which is authenticity and trust. So this is a single person running a global business out of her bedroom. I think also in businesses, you need to think about thought leadership. In a world where information becomes the neutrality of value, your marketing has to all be driven, I think, around thought leadership. The idea that you can really shape and change the agenda is extremely important. And be free to do that, not just at a sort of a lobby type of level, but at a grassroots level. Gersten Schwartz, the COO of Sun Microsystems, said that my 1,000 bloggers' son has done more for this company than $1 billion ad campaign ever could have done. And through that extraordinary amount of sort of effort, people are actually generating a different type of thought leadership within the company. So as I said, we've got to think about products and services that perform for us and that are really kind of delivering a value to systems. The iPhone is a great example, I think, of setting up its store, its app store, 1 billion downloads in 9 months. Also a lot of apps that people don't use once or twice and then they throw them away. But nonetheless, I think that, as Howard Rheingold said, the iPhone represents what a mobile device should be or could be like. Whereas Nokia actually said that they would never bring out a touchscreen phone. And the BBC, I think, is a great, the BBC iPlayer is a great example, again, of looking at the end-user experience first, and then sort of looking back at the technology and thinking, how deliver sort of real value through what we are doing. And I think that the fact that all the ISPs in the UK were demanding that the BBC pay 10% of their broadband bills because people are using the iPlayer so much demonstrates that when technology meets a fundamental human need, we pull on it very hard and we use it. So we've got to be designing around real user experience. We've got to think about how we do what we do through sort of our enterprise to give value to people that is unique to them. The great thing about the BBC iPlayer, of course, is it also is part of conversation. So you and I could be chatting about a particular program, maybe we saw ITV, and we said, yes, but if you go onto the iPlayer, you can listen to or watch that TV program, and we can continue the conversation. And so, you're standing in the flow of content information as opposed to actually standing at the back of the queue. And if you don't get in at the right time, you've missed it. And some reason for that. Okay. So therefore, I sort of make this point that we need to have interface without interference. Really looking at how as a business we create or interface with our customers or our stakeholders sort of separately or even practically through the technology, the hardware, the experiences that we create a really wonderful interface that feels more human. And a lot of 2.0, and Ewan talked about it again, it's not about the technology. We've sort of become quite sort of obsessed about the technology. So as Howard Rheingold calls all of the sort of what we talk about as 2.0 are technologies of cooperation that amplify human talent to better cooperate together. And this is one of the things that actually is really sort of spanners and grips in the gears of the network society, because a linear industrial hierarchical approach doesn't really like cooperation, because it's not controlled in the way that traditional organisations are. So as I said, if I go back to, I've mentioned Sun already, if I talk about the Los Angeles Fire Department, they use Twitter, for example, by informing people about micro-events, a car is broken down or there's been a big pile-up and, section of Route 101 out of Los Angeles is going to be shut for the next 5 hours. They're using this as a sort of very interesting sort of information tool. The Guardian, the newspaper group, publishes some of its articles via Twitter or informs people. And Zappos, the online shoe and accessory retailer, has every single member of its company on Twitter, because they take the view that every single one of those people is a representative of that company. It means that marketing becomes actually about the quality of the communication you're having with people in a range of different ways, which is not built out of this TV campaign or looking at it from a campaigning basis, but on a day-to-day, human level integration, cooperation, discussion, and communication that creates lasting value, which is about trust. In our book, Smith Stimulate Brands, we also talk about the fact that business models really should be built out of what we call the 4 C's, which is commerce, culture, community, and connectivity. And it's when you kind of use that as a model to think about how you're creating your enterprise 2.0 in the future, that this is maybe a useful tool to use. Just to give an example, the Weekend Warriors is a service that was set up by the Australian Music Association. I'm 45 years of age. I go into music stores, my young son, to buy his first guitar. They ask me whether I used to play music. I say, well, I used to play a guitar, but I don't anymore. And basically what they're offering up is the ability for me to form a group with like-minded people of a similar age. We've got a professional coach that coaches us to perform a song to performance level that we all want to play. We all go and record it. And of course, in that intimate experience, I'm bonding with other people, but I'm also wanting to buy the music instrument because I now have the $2,000 in my pocket to pay for that guitar, which I never had when I was 18. So it's a very interesting way of thinking about community, the commerce, the culture, and the connectivity. And of course, then they're sort of then falling together to play gigs as bands together. This is a thing in Japan called Girls Water, and Girls Water is a fashion magazine where young girls can buy accessories of the mobile phone. The girls walking down the catwalk are in fact not professional, highly paid models. They're girls from the Girls Water community. They can fill stadiums of up to 40,000 people, young girls that come from the Girls Water community, and it's what I would call a massive community of interest. And links back to the fact that when you deliver something around a community which is driven by values, passions and desires, there's a strong motivation to link along and connect. The gentleman that set this up in 2003 made over €3 million last year by selling fashion accessories of the mobile phone and creating a thriving, interconnected and collaborative community. Threadless is a online store where you and anybody else who's listening, if they so desire, can design a t-shirt, they can upload it onto Threadless. We, the community, come along and we discuss those designs. We sometimes offer recommendations. And the winner of that week gets $5,000 and they get a royalty payment for every time one of their t-shirts is sold. Only 5% of the people that buy stuff on the Threadless aren't involved in the community at all. So it's a completely different type of business model where people feel that they actually are able to participate and collaborate. They are incentivized creatively by the economic code-sharing that goes on as well. And World of Warcraft is, again, a fantastic example where kids are able to come along and co-create and collaborate on a super global basis. I think there are 50,000 people, if not more, on World of Warcraft at any one time. And also their business model is interesting in terms of the subscriptions, but then the micropayments, which are actually built into the model. And so I say that people embrace what they create. And it goes back to the points made earlier that there are no conscripts, there are only volunteers. And I think there are no longer consumers. We are all traders of knowledge and information or value in a different types of ways. And understanding how we kind of create that value exchange is extremely important. How we understand this fact that we are no longer these sort of edifices of organisation, but we should be permeable, is extremely important. And Barack Obama, I think, is a fantastic example of someone that used all communication technology to organise, motivate, and deploy extraordinary amounts of people to ensure that he was the first Democrat in 8 years back into the White House. His Facebook page was the fastest growing Facebook page in history. But his message was extremely important. Yes, we can. And in fact, the way that he went about doing that, and still trying to do that, was a genuine belief that actually everyone could write themselves into history. So by becoming a part of something, you have more ownership over it. And if I talk about co-marketing, because I think this is also very important. You were sort of talking about the sort of the inside projects, and what I'm very interested in is how companies actually kind of interact from the inside out. Is in fact thinking about how we co-market, co-innovate, and co-create together. And Lego is a fantastic example of enterprise built for the 21st century. Quite often, when companies or people are faced with a stark choice of survival or death, if they choose to embrace the survival route, they will naturally innovate for the consequences of that. And I think Lego is a really good example. So what they say is, and I'll just read these out, although I think you hopefully can see them, but understand what your customer's perception of value is. Don't imply your sense of value upon them. Interact frequently, be open and honest. It's a little bit like, a husband and wife relationship or a partner relationship. The more that you're talking, the more you're open and honest, the more trust you make. you must be authentic and you must say when you've made a mistake. To encourage the conversations also between your consumers and find your advocates and let them in, because they're the ones that will tell you where you're going wrong louder and quicker than a lot of other people do. Organise what can be formalised, participate, so the more you put in, the more you get out. Inspire, don't manage your community, and don't sell, show passion. And it's also okay to say, well, we don't know, what do you think? And harnessing collective intelligence. Something that, again, Ewan sort of talked about in his early presentation, was how do you harness that intelligence and make it available is extremely important. Galaxy Zoo is a very interesting story of a Oxford University professor who was mapping universes within the solar system, so within the universe. He set up a thing called Galaxy Zoo, and he thought it was a few thousand people participated. It really is quite extraordinary how many people from around the world actually have been working on Galaxy Zoo. So what he thought would take years and years to do has been accelerated by an exponential event. Also, breaking down the ability to participate comes at a level where you don't need to do a PhD to make a contribution. And the image on the left-hand side, if you go on to Twitter, you'll see many, many images of people coming together face to face who have actually found each other via Galaxy Zoo. So, what's this all about? What are things that you should maybe take away from this presentation? Well, trust and transparency in the network society, the network communication age is absolutely of paramount importance. If you're not trusted, or if you're not seen as a transparent organisation, you will find that having a negative impact on your P&L account. It is about I, and it is about we. Carl Jung actually said that I need we to truly be I. And we as organisations have to understand that and to marry that both in terms of the internal ways that we are working and collaborating and innovating, and how we are reaching out and embracing and attracting our customers to feel that they are participants of our organisation. We need not just context, but we need deep context. Through that deep context, we create greater meaning, and we have to think about how we do that. We have to think about how we embed sociability into everything we do, because funnily enough, as Ewan said, we are actually highly social animals, and yet we seem to strip all of that sociability really out of the way our organisations are constructed, and also the way that we market to or market with the people that we want to spend their money with us. And I think that's extremely important, both in terms of a philosophical approach, but also I think in terms of the types of buildings you might create, technologies that you're creating, the business models that you're making. And that the organisation should be an open organisation. It should feel more permeable, where flows of information in and out are on a day-to-day basis creating greater value. And in fact, the organisation is only about 150 years old, the company, or thereabouts. And Charles Canby argues that, in fact, the village has survived for millennia, where, it's made rich and colourful by the thriving humanity in it. But perhaps we should think about Enterprise 2.0 in our organisations more as a village, I would suggest. And look, actually, there is no online or offline. There is only blended reality. This is the way that we experience the world. And I would say that what worries, from my experience of being a marketeer for many years, is that what we're perhaps seeing is people rushing into social media, not understanding what it's all about, and then just having social media as another silo within the siloed organisation already, rather than understanding that everything they do should be about creating great experiences for their customers. Purpose represents what I would call network economics, a completely different way of how we create value and how and when the money flows to make that money flow in great amounts. And it is possible. The reason why people like Rupert Murdoch are now saying that they're going to put up walled gardens around their businesses because they're not prepared to re-engineer their enterprises to be ready and prepared for the network society. Technology cooperation is what it's all about. The more it enables us to cooperate, the more successful we will be. And that we need a new language initiative to really explore that. And it's not something I can go into a tour here. I've mentioned some of it. But without the language and without the literature of describing this word properly, we can't actually be able to sort of move forward, I would suggest. As I said, speakers have to be three things: life enabling, life simplifying, and navigational. And we need contextual meaning differently. This is an image of the leader of the opposition, David Cameron, and a young boy who was a hoodie. David Cameron famously said that we should all have hoodies. And we were talking about the antisocial behaviour of young people in society. But curiously enough, this image represents something for me that I think is very important. This young man sees no context of his relationship with David Cameron, hence his sort of later these gangster salute. And so therefore there is no meaning of his engagement in society. As organisations, what that means is if you have no context and no meaning, you become irrelevant. And the last stage of irrelevancy is obsolescence. Anyway, so that ends my presentation. Again, as you and said, I would be very happy to stay in touch. You can stay in touch with me via connecting by email or by Twitter, www.sml@thelarge.com. Thank you very much for your time.
Hi, Alan. Thanks for this presentation. And Alan and Evan, I have two questions that due to time constraints, we'll just have two questions answered. So I'll leave it to one of you can pick up these questions. Okay, one of the questions from the participant is, Web 3.2 versus Web 2.2 relevancy with respect to the enterprise. Please share your views.
Yes, sorry, can you repeat the question again?
Yeah. So Web 3.0 versus Web 2.0 relevancy with respect to enterprise. What is your view on this?
Well, having expressed skepticism about phrases like Web 2.0 and Enterprise 2.0, I'm not a great fan of Web 3.0. I mean, if the question means the use of semantic web technologies, which is commonly what Web 3.0 is taken to mean, yes, I think that there will be a bit more. People ask me what I think the future is going to be about. I think it would be making patterns out of all the noise that we've been encouraged to create. And some of those patterns will be achieved by human judgment and by each of us filtering information and passing on the good stuff to each other. Some of that will be able to be automated, possibly not the semantic web, but there will be no doubt more technical solutions to the increasing amounts of information that we're all going to have to deal with. But I would suggest that getting organisations to get their heads around Web 2.0 first would be probably step.
Thanks for that. And the other question is, apart from functionality, what are some of the advantages that come with Web 2.0, especially outside the scope of the IT?
Well, I think that, again, I think, I'm sort of reviewing on this, and that, we need to understand that we are in the middle of a communications revolution, which is, in fact, we are in the process of renegotiating power relationships between each other. I think that, it's about how human beings actually relate to and engage with each other in a variety of ways. Business actually is a social science. It's not a science as such. And bringing humanity back into the way that we run our businesses inside and out, I think, will be the way that companies will succeed going forward in the future.
And I think we are done with the questions, and the participants, all other questions will be answered through email. And again, once again, I would like to thank both Juan and Alan for the presentation, and all the participants for your time with us for this webinar. Thanks everyone, and all have a nice